Netherlands, Europe, four-season country. But no, there was never four seasons here in the Netherlands. It's always winter
It's
and
always
it's
very
spring.
cold, right?
Yeah.
One. Hello, everyone. I am Teratai Hiep, owner and intercultural trainer at Compass Coaching and Training. Today, in our video series, I will be chatting a heart-to-heart and one-to-one chat with experts from around the world on their lives, working and living, or even studying abroad, away from their native country and away from family and friends. It's not easy, but always a rich experience. And today I have a really special guest because he's a really good friend of mine, and he is Anuar Shafiei from Malaysia, and he's been here for 15 years. So, hey Anuar, can you please say hi to our viewers and tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Hi, Teratai. Thank you for having me today. And hello, everyone. My name is Anuar Shafiei, and I come from Malaysia. And as Terata mentioned, I've been living in Holland now for about 15 years. I came to Holland to study originally way back when I was younger. And in the beginning, I thought I would stay for a couple of years and I'll go back to Malaysia. However, 15 years in, I'm still here and I'm currently working for ASTP. ASTP is an association for knowledge transfer professional based in Leiden, the Netherlands.
Mm. So you have been here for 15 years, you say, right? And it must have been an adventure for you, especially coming from Malaysia, right? So how was it like for you in the first few years when you moved to the Netherlands?
Oh yes, it is. It was an interesting experience. Still is probably. In the beginning, coming to the Netherlands, as I mentioned, for study, and probably my first expectation was Netherlands, Europe, four-season country. But no, there was never four seasons here in the Netherlands. It's always winter
It's
and
always
it's
very cold,
spring.
right?
Yeah, it's always very cold. But back to the original question. How was it like in the Netherlands? First, finding a job in the beginning was, I should say, quite difficult for me, especially being a meat carrier guy. I used to work in Malaysia for 15 years, and I had a managerial position for about 10 years of my working life. And when I came here, I thought after my finished my graduation, I did MBA. So I thought, how difficult could it be to find a job? It turned out to be
Really
difficult.
difficult, yeah.
Yeah. Especially to find a job at the same level as I used to have in Malaysia. So at that, secondly, of course, salary expectation. I was thinking converting one to one. If you were earning, for example, 10,000 in Malaysia, you were expecting to get 10,000 euro here monthly basis. It was not the case. But however, once I found my first job, things gets much easier. And the ASTP is my third job in the Netherlands in the last, I don't know, 15 years.
Yeah, it's a wow, it's 15
Yeah.
years, it's not easy. And it sounds like you had changed industries, right? So I imagine that it was not easy for you because you already came with your own set of knowledge.
Yes, exactly. It was not easy in the very beginning, but like I mentioned, because finding a job is difficult, especially something that you already know.
Yeah.
So after having many rejection, so I decided I rethink about my career plan or my
Yeah.
career path, if you like.
Mm-mm.
So I was working as a sales and marketing manager back then in Malaysia. So not having at that time, I didn't speak Dutch
Mm.
very well. So I decided maybe I need to change plan.
Mm-mm.
So during my MBA, I did a thesis about a new business model for Scientific Publishers Association.
Yeah.
So that's how I landed my first job at STM.
Mm-mm.
For those of you who don't know, STM is Scientific, Technical, and Medical Publishers Association. They have an
Yes.
affiliate in The Hague called EPRO, which is International Publishers Right Organization. So that was my first job. So on that job, I was an office manager slash program manager. but I was dealing a lot with finance at that for that job. Of course, not something that I like, but I took the job anyway in order to, get my footing in the
Through the
job business,
door.
job market. Yeah, to the door job
Yeah.
market in the Netherlands. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is actually something that I really like about your story, the constant reinvention and adapting, because as we can hear, your career path from tech and then office manager, finance, and now event management, like there was constant reinvention. You were not afraid to try something new. And is this something that you would advise future expats or current expats who's having trouble with finding jobs?
Yes, I would say yes.
Yeah.
Unless if you are an expat coming to the Netherlands with already a job offer, or your company send you here to work on, in a new department, then you will need to probably rethink of your career plan. Do not afraid to try something new, and probably I learned that as well with my current job. As I mentioned, it is an association for knowledge transfer professional. We advocate sharing knowledge, sharing best practices. So and how to say that, knowledge transfer, that's what we do. And now that you change your knowledge into what you know into a different industry. So what I'm doing right now is more or less, even though not 100% similar to what I did in Malaysia. Half, yes, event organization. The other part is managing the bottom line of every project that we run to finance the office.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, especially if you are a mid-career professional who had to move countries such as to the Netherlands, like myself, I was mid-career, and I realized that I also had to manage my expectations, like as compared to other types of expats who already had a job lined up, like what you say. Like for myself, I also had to adapt to the situation, because sometimes you have to do things that you may not like at first, but you just need the door to open a little bit so that you can continue on with your journey, because at the end of the day you will get back to what you want as long as you keep trying, right? You don't give up.
Yeah, that is true. And also, I always believe that if you already have a job, it is much easier for you to find another job. And we have to admit that as an employer, you would like to hire someone who has been working rather than looking at the gap in the CV, unemployed. I know many people will not agree with me probably on this part, but in my current job, I interview lots of people for employment in our organization, and that's what we look at as well. So it is what it is.
It's like a really good tip. Yeah, it's a really good tip. And you also mentioned, right, that that it's important to have some degree of Dutch if you were to come into work into the Netherlands. Like, can you just expand a little bit about that?
Yeah, because I say learn a little bit of Dutch when you plan to come to the Netherlands. The basic, at least, so that you know what is. There are a few words sometimes the Dutch people use, despite being the conversation is in English, for example. They started adding a couple of Dutch words, which to spice up the conversation. But if you don't know what the word is, the conversation turns out to be bland. And of course, many Dutch organizations prefer their candidate to be able to speak Dutch, even though for an international organization. I can tell you a story about my way back then when I was applying for this job, and they called me for an interview. So if they call you for an interview, they are interested in your CV, that you fit the bill. However, 20 minutes in the conversation, here comes the million-dollar question: how good is your Dutch? And I was very honest, saying, no, I don't speak Dutch. That was 14 years ago, probably. And then the conversation stopped. They say, okay, if you don't speak Dutch, we are not going forward with your application. So there you go. Even though the job in the beginning mentioned that, English is the main language.
Yes. Because the reality is that you are working in the Netherlands, so a lot of your colleagues could be Dutch as well. And having a good grasp of Dutch can help with perhaps with working with each other for projects, And
Yeah.
also for camaraderie, right? Like you speak a little bit of Dutch, even if your Dutch is not great,
Yeah.
you just try a little bit, because it actually opens the door a little bit more. It makes the relationship a lot warmer as well if you can speak just a little bit more Dutch. And we all know as expats that the Dutch language is not easy, but you
No,
can
it is.
always try. You can always try. You are somebody that I really quite admire, because you have a long career in Malaysia, and then now also a long career in the Netherlands. So, like, what are some kinds of similarities or differences that you see in the business cultures in both countries?
Right. Probably the first thing I should mention is about the Dutch directness. Right. And my previous job, I dealt a lot with a Dutch organization, and Dutch people are very, very direct in the sense that A is A, B is B. There is no such thing as gray area, as we coming from Asia and probably specifically Malaysia, that we try not to offend people by saying no. We always say, let me think about it, or we'll get back to you next week. And when we already know that the answer is going to be no, so why not just say no? So here, this I come to find very interesting here in Holland. The Dutch will say no, and that's it. The deal is done. There is no deal in that sense, if you know what I mean, and we can move forward, save lots of time.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
And how was it like for you the first time that you experienced the no?
It was like, huh, really? They are being very. It was a shock, of course, because we not in our DNA, in our culture, to simply say no to something that we try to go around the bush, or we should call it, yeah. So yes, but on the other hand, come to think of it, I really, really find it very good. We save a lot of time, save a lot of trouble. Nobody gets offended here in the Netherlands.
Yeah, precisely. I think, like, to inexperienced expats who just lived here maybe less than a year, I think this can be misinterpreted as being rude, But in actual fact, once you get used to the culture here, there is a difference between being rude and being direct. Because especially when we do business, the directness is very helpful, because now oh, okay, this is not going to work out. I'll move on to the next person or the next company, because at the end of the day, it saves time, right? But I imagine it was such a culture shock, because it was also a culture shock for me coming from Singapore, because Singapore, we are quite alike between Singapore and Malaysia, that we do not want to offend. Like, maintaining harmony is very important in our culture. But I think here it is not as important, because I think to move on is something that is more appreciated. To be honest, is something that is very appreciated. Yeah. So what are the kind of culture shocks that you got at first, like you received? Like, I remember you just said that, oh, it's always very cold here, the 4 seasons is not real. Is that something that you also struggle?
In the beginning, yes, because I should mention also here, I visited the Netherlands probably 10 times before my permanent move. But of course, I came for a couple of weeks during summer. I came a couple of weeks during spring. Everything was so beautiful during that visit. So I was lucky. But living here now, that probably 6 months of the year, we have kind of winter-ish weather.
Yeah.
As you are lucky to get 25 degrees or summer or sunny day 3 days in a year. So
yeah, I mean, like, so, compare it to Malaysia. What is like the normal temperature like in Malaysia?
Well, probably 29 to 30 degrees all year round, day and night. Of course, being Malaysia, in Asia, we get lots of rain in the afternoon, but after the rain stop, here you come the sunshine and 30 degrees again.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, there are 4 seasons here in the Netherlands, but like in comparison to those of us who are from the tropics, from Southeast Asia, like this is cold. I think over here, if it doesn't rain and it's like in the 20s degree, it's a nice day. But like back in Singapore, if it's like 25 degrees, everybody's already wearing their coats, right?
Yeah, true. And a few other things that I should mention, not all bad, of course. For example, the how to say, the way of living here is very relaxing. You could see probably I have to mention this to all ladies. People in the Netherlands are very laid back. You can see lots of ladies applying makeup in the train. They don't. So probably you never see this in Asia, in Malaysia. People came out, really well,
All
nicely
proper.
done, proper. But for you, there's something shocking to me in the beginning. I say, oh my God, what are they doing in the train applying makeup?
Yeah.
So that's something you should see. You should probably not significant enough, of course,
No.
but something that is very interesting for us, a foreigner, that
Yeah.
experience something like that.
Yeah, that's very interesting because I do agree with there is a lot more casual and
Mm-hmm.
laid back here. Because I think in Singapore, at least, it's very formal, very
Yeah.
structured, and everybody really dressed to go to work,
Mm-hmm.
And here, it's not that they don't dress to go to work, they do, but it's a lot more casual here, right? Would you
Casual,
say that?
yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally agree. It's totally very casual, especially now in my current work. We don't really need to wear suit to the office, or you don't really need to proper office attire that we used to in certain organization. It's just everything is casual and there's no
Yeah.
hierarchy as well. So that's
Yeah.
what I meant by laid back, happy lifestyle.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah, you mentioned something about hierarchy. Is that
Mm-hmm.
something that is quite visible in the Malaysian business culture compared to the one here?
I should say yes. It is very visible when you have the manager position or director's position and all, and it is very very visible. Here in Europe, probably based on my experience working for ASTP, for example, almost there is no hierarchy that you can simply walk into your CEO's office and hey, just ask question, or you would see your bosses at the coffee station and they would simply offer you, would you like a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
And back home, I think this never happened, at least not to me.
Yeah, I would say a similar experience for me as well, because in Singapore, hierarchy is a real thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before we get to meet like the director, it's like a whole board meeting that we need to get. And it's
Mm-hmm.
a big difference when it comes to the Netherlands, where you can have like direct relationship with
Mm-hmm.
your managerial position. And it's quite a fresh breath of air. I guess
Yeah.
in different cultures, different business system works,
Yeah.
And so was it like a shock for you in the beginning?
In the beginning, not really a shock in the sense a bad way. It's kind of
Something new?
how to say, enlightening to know that this kind of thing still exists.
Yeah, yeah,
And it has been going on. Yeah, it has been like that apparently in many organizations. That's I was informed before I joined the organization anyway. But of course, coming in as a newcomer, as a new employee, of course, you come with got on and
yeah, of course.
managing expectation again, and it is really what they say it is. So
Yeah, precisely. I remember like in Singapore,
mm-hmm.
we work long hours, right?
Yeah.
And I remember the first week that I started working in the Netherlands, I was in my Singapore mode of working. So like work past like 6 o'clock, 7, and then I realized that I was the only one in the building
Mm-hmm.
working. And I was like, oh, everybody has gone home. It was 7 o'clock. And then I realized that I got locked in the building. Yes, everybody's
Yeah.
home. Everybody go home at 5 o'clock. And that was like a real introduction for me to
Yeah.
the way that it works here. Oh, is it something that I won't say you experience about being locked in the work building, of course, but is that something that you also observed here?
Yes, absolutely. Of course, I should mention again, I work in hospitality industry, sales and
Oh,
marketing
that's
in
different. Yeah.
Malaysia. So you work really long hours, 8 o'clock in the evening. We just started a meeting, and
Yeah.
here in the Netherlands, when we mentioned 40 hours contract, we really work 40 hours, 8 hours a day, and 5:30, 6 o'clock top. We
Yeah.
just go home, and tomorrow is a new day.
Yeah.
And even my colleagues and my boss before kept saying to me, hey, Anwar, it is already 6 o'clock. Go home, enjoy the sunshine, or go to
Yeah.
the cafe somewhere. There's always tomorrow.
It's really nice. The work-life balance, I think it's
Yeah,
really taken seriously here.
yeah, that is true.
Yeah. And this question, in the last few years, we have been in deep pandemic, right? Not able
Yeah.
to travel. How was it like for you?
Right. Work-wise, I should say pandemic did not really affect ASTP or us as an employee because we remain open throughout the pandemic period. But of course, we work from home. So we meet colleagues on Team, on Zoom, on other platform. Social life, it changed a little bit, of course, to me especially because in the
Yes.
past, we had lots of gathering with Malaysian people here and we go out for dinner. Drink and so on and so forth. But when the pandemic hit, we couldn't do that kind of thing anymore. And yeah, you just stay confined in your own home.
Yeah.
So that is a little bit of challenge. And of course, in addition to that, coming from Asia, all the way from Asia, that I couldn't go back home in the last during the
Yeah. It's
pandemic.
not easy.
Not easy, and yeah, you miss a family a lot, and the family and the food in Malaysia, and the routine that I used to do because I used to go back once or twice a year on the fixed term, I should say, early spring and the summer, or Hari Raya, we should say, coming from Asia. So
Yeah.
that what I miss the most in the last two, and make you realize that how
Yeah.
pandemic really affect us
Yeah.
in that sense.
Yeah, the pandemic was really tough
Yeah.
on me as well personally, because like yourself, I never thought that moving abroad that I could not ever go home or like go to my home country. Like I would travel at least once a year. But during the pandemic, when everything closes down, it was really tough because like face to face is always better than
Mm-hmm.
FaceTime or Zoom. Like it can never be replaced that kind of human connection. And how was it like for you when you went back to Malaysia for the first time after the pandemic or since the pandemic? Yeah.
Yeah, that was really interesting that I should mention is personally here. When I first moved to Holland, of course, I thought my biggest fear of not being able to go back to Malaysia was maybe I didn't have money for the flight ticket. Never crossed my mind that this kind of pandemic would stop you from traveling.
Yeah.
So, so the first time I went back was last July after 3 years, and it was really interesting to see because we are a big family. I've got I don't know lots of nieces and nephews. So when I first went back, the last time I went back prior to pandemic was in May 2019, and
Yes.
then there was my recent trip was July 2022. So that's 3 years.
3 years. Yeah, more than three
So
years. Yeah.
more than 3 years. So all my nieces and nephews who were at that time 2 years old became how many? Five. Three became six. So you hardly recognize them anymore because they are so big, and I think lots of things could happen in 3 years as well. So uh,
Yeah.
really an eye opener that hey, just value the time, go back
Yeah. Yeah. It's
if
not
and whenever
easy.
you can. Money is
Yeah.
not the issue. Money is
Yeah.
not the main thing. It's not really. It is
Precisely,
always an
right?
issue, but not the main thing.
Yeah, I
That
remember.
put things
Yeah.
in perspective a lot, actually.
Precisely, right?
Yeah.
I remember the first time going back to Singapore after 3 years. Wow, it was really overwhelming for me
Mm-hmm.
because you realize that the 3 years that you were abroad, like you missed out so much. Like suddenly you have new family members that you were not. I mean, you were aware that they
Yeah.
were born in the 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
but you never got to meet them until you got back. And yeah, it was really overwhelming, and you realize that you miss all the special occasions, like for us
Yeah.
Hari Raya and all the food. Like it was nice to see family again after all these years.
Yeah.
Before we round off, of course, like we talk a lot about you adapting, reinventing. That's what I really like about your story, reinventing and picking up Dutch and
Mm-hmm.
um, all the culture shocks that you overcame and understanding the different work cultures. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what would be your advice to your younger self if you
Mm-hmm.
could turn back time before you move or live in the Netherlands?
Right. I would say come with an open mind, maybe low on high expectation, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
And
manage.
learn basic Dutch before you come here, and maybe get connected to Malaysian community as soon as you get here. Don't be a loner. Luckily I did that kind of thing, but for probably for those Malaysian especially who are planning to come to the
Mm-mm.
Netherlands to work or to move, following your spouse or whatever, Yeah,
Yeah.
that is something they should do probably. Yeah. Come with
Yeah.
an open mind and don't afraid to try something new and don't be afraid to leave your old life behind and start something new. When I say old life, I mean your luxury of having a good job. You know, people know you in your back in the country, in the industry. But here, you should realize that despite doesn't matter what qualification you have, you are a newcomer to the job
Yes.
market, to the country. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think those are really important advice because, you know, people who have not moved abroad before or worked abroad before, they have, I think, a different idea of what it is
Mm-hmm.
like for us who lived and worked abroad. And a lot of times it is us having to adapt to new situations, unfamiliar situations that may not be easy. And like you say, finding supportive networks are
Yeah.
very important, like finding people who can be your allies, you know, allies such as like the Malaysian networking group, or getting in touch with intercultural trainers like myself, or coaches, or, you know, because restarting again is not easy. And you
Mm,
can say that because you've been here for 15 years and for myself for 5 years, right?
yeah, that is true. And also, I should mention, I know many people would come probably shoot me that by saying, okay, get connected to your Malaysian community because you are moving to a foreign country, to the Netherlands. You should
Yeah.
be making friends with the Dutch. Yes, that is true too, I should say. But
Mm-mm.
probably they should also understand about the Dutch culture that they don't make friends easily. Your
Mm-mm.
colleagues are not your friends, for example. You don't
Mm-mm.
simply invite your colleague, hey, let's go for drink after work, let's go to a movie, let's go to shopping. That we used to do this kind of thing back home in Asia. It's normal. But
Mm.
here in the Netherlands, your colleagues are probably not your friends. That is
Mm.
a fact.
Mm.
Um, of course, they are nice to you when you are at work. What I mean is that they cannot be your buddy outside work because
Mm.
that's not just not in their gene. So that is
Mm-mm.
culture that we should adapt and we should
Yeah.
understand a little bit. I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but
Mm.
this is just again
A
managing
difference.
expectation. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think just to clear it up for those of us who are here for the first time, like back
Mm,
in Asia, in Singapore and Malaysia, there
mm,
is the distinctions, social distinctions are not as apparent as it is here. So
yeah,
like back in Asia, especially in Singapore, like family and friends and colleagues all exist within the same social distinction. So
yeah,
a friend is actually considered a colleague can be a friend, you know. So
yeah,
like I'll go have dinner with my colleague who is also my friend back in Asia, and that is very normal. But over
yeah,
here, there are very clear social distinctions. Like a colleague may not be your friend, you know, like it can remain as a
yeah,
colleague, and family and
mm,
friends are other social distinctions. So
yeah.
it's not a bad thing. It's just a
No,
different culture. So this is
yeah,
something that
exactly.
everybody needs to understand, you know, because there's a lot of expats that write on Reddit, or it's very hard to make friends here. But just know that there is just a different social distinction here. And there is actually, it is possible to make friends with the Dutch. You just
Yeah,
need to know how. And for that, you need to
exactly.
find your supportive network and then get in touch with us. Oh,
Exactly, yeah.
right.
The,
Yeah. Yeah, you were
to
saying.
learn the nitty gritty of getting around the Dutch society or getting around on how to live. Okay, probably the wrong word to say how to live in the Netherlands, but yes, getting around in the Netherlands is not easy.
Mm-mm.
Even though after 15 years, I should say there are things that
That you're
I
still
still
finding out.
still finding out, still learning.
Yeah, that's why like
Yeah,
our lives, that's why I wanted to interview, because the life that we lead is actually very fun, because you find out new things every day. And you know, I think it's also important to also share the kind of challenges that
yeah,
everyone face, like the pandemic and being away from family and friends. And with that in mind, I know, you know, your family and friends might be watching here, you know, and I hope they do, because then they get to see you in action and tell your story. So with that, would you like to say hello to your family and friends back in Singapore, and just an encouraging word to all the expatriates that may want to come and work and live here in the Netherlands as well?
right. Thanks for the opportunity. Yes, to all my family. Hi, I hope. you guys maybe be able to visit me someday here in the Netherlands and to relive what I have lived and also to experience what I have experienced so far. And our friends out there, if you are ever friends and new potential friends, if you are planning to move to the Netherlands, don't be afraid or don't get threatened by what I have said just now. It is all true, at least based on my own personal experience. Everybody or different people might have different experience. I know a couple of guys who moved to the Netherlands and they managed to find a job within 3 months. Lucky for you. But as I mentioned, not something that they wanted to do in the beginning. But the keyword here is trying to find a job, trying to find your footing here in the Netherlands. Once you are in the job market, lots of doors would open. Yeah. And do come to the Netherlands and Pro Compass is also can help you.
Thank you very much, Anuar. And with that, Anuar, terima kasih banyak-banyak. You know, this has been so lovely to talk to you again because I think it's important to have your story shared. Yeah. And with that, thank you, and we'll see you again in future episodes. Bye.
Most welcome. Bye.